Hi everybody, this is Saurabh and I am an infrastructure code consultant. So I have been working with AWS technologies for the last 5 years, and I am also a part of the AWS Kolkata user group, wherein I am an organizer of the AWS Kolkata user group. So today's topic is infrastructure as code, which I am very passionate about, and a little bit background into this. So I am from a development test. I did not have much experience in infrastructure like system, like uh, like whoever sets up the systems and those kind of stuff. But when I moved to a DevOps role, I picked up this stuff, so I like it very much. And since then, I have been pursuing this or trying to learn more about this. Okay. Now, today we'll cover like what is infrastructure as code, which is short form is ISC, we call it. Why or what benefits do we have when we use ISC? We'll dig a little deeper into infrastructure as code. We'll see what tools AWS provides to implement this infrastructure as a code, and we'll also go through some best practices. So, at a high level, infrastructure as a code is a technique or a concept which you can say, which is wherein traditional infrastructure management, like earlier you used to do a lot of manual stuff when you used to say deploy servers, or you just used to request some stuff, you need to manually go and install stuff. So those things are being replaced by code-based tools and software development techniques. So with the cloud, everything is available as an API, and you use those APIs via some software development software tools, wherein you write code to call those APIs, wherein your infrastructure will be deployed and configured. So it's a way to automate tasks to provision, configure, deploy, orchestrate infrastructure and your applications, which will run on those infrastructure. So a little bit pause out here, like I've used various terms like provision, configure, deploy, and orchestrate. So like provisioning is the initial level of infrastructure. Like you need a server, you need some networking setup. So those are the bare bones stuff that you need your application to run on. So once you have those systems set up, then networking stuff, the security groups, the firewalls, and those kind of stuff. So then you would configure those stuff. So for your particular use, like you need to make some changes, tweaks, you need to install some software or some certain things. So those kind of things you then do it, and then you would go and deploy your application stuff, and then you would monitor those applications or orchestrate those applications running on a very large scale, basically. So out here, the provisioning step is the bare bones stuff. Then you do a configure and a deploy. So this is basically the configure part is needed for the applications, the dependencies of the applications, and deploy is the actual when you are actually deploying the applications. Now configure and deploy, these two steps can be like configure and deploy applications or install the applications. Those are commands in case of when you are using a container system like Docker, but otherwise those are separate steps. And so that's it out here. Next, so that's at a high level what is infrastructure as a code. and we are basically automating stuff out here. So next, we'd like to dig a little bit deeper into what we saw is infrastructure as a code and how we go and do this stuff. So you have your machine out here, and wherein you are writing your code, infrastructure code. So you say you want to bring up two servers, and that you write the code in you call APIs to deploy two servers in AWS in a particular account in a particular region, and so that code you are writing on your machine. Now that needs to be deployed across the AWS environments, which will be, say, for example, the dev environment, stage environment, or the prod environment. And this whole thing, like you did write your code once, and that is being deployed across different environments just by a push of a button. So this whole thing, the automation part, is the infrastructure as a code. Indeed, it encompasses the infrastructure as a code, and how it happens behind the scenes. There are a couple of things we need to know. So one is declarative versus procedural. So this is little bit theoretical stuff, but it's good to know this stuff. Procedural is like I want to deploy two servers. So procedural is I will tell you there are 10 steps to deploy two servers. So you do this thing, then you do these things, then you will reach step 10, and you have deployed two servers. So that's one way of doing it. You tell all the steps how to do it basically. And declarative is basically I want this. So I want two servers. I don't need to know how it is being done. I just say I want two servers, and it will be done for me. So that's the declarative way. Now, in case of infrastructure as code tools, there are both kind of tools available in the which are procedural tools versus declarative tools, which follow the procedural versus declarative approach. There are advantages of both kinds of approaches. So declarative may work more better with scales when you are scaling up stuff. You don't need to go through all procedural approach, but when you need a fine-grained control, let me come back. So say suppose I want 100 servers. So that will be a declarative approach, like I want 100 servers. So I just mentioned I want 100 servers of this kind, and it will bring up those 100 servers of that kind. Now inside those servers, I may need these things, specific granular controls, and for that I may have to go for a procedural approach. I need the special get controls inside those servers. So there I may need some procedural controls. Mutable versus immutable is another concept of infrastructure as code. So say suppose I am running my application in one server and I make some changes to it, or I am running my application, there are some configuration changes or certain things. So I make the changes inside that server only. So I am rechanging that stuff or rewriting stuff on that server only. Immutable is I am making the change, and it brings up a new instance of the server. So it kills the older instance and brings up a new resource basically. So that's immutable, and that's useful in cases that you always get a predictable approach. So every time you are bringing up a new thing, it doesn't have to be because of the cloud you get this advantage. So it doesn't have to be uh, like with the immutable approach. There can be a lot of problems, like there can be some steps you miss, and it can lead to some versions that may go wrong, or certain things. So it can lead to some problems where you may not get always the same result every time. And with immutable, you are going to get the same result every time, because it's going to bring up the same system again from scratch with different configurations that you have put in place. So it's better in some cases. So here also there are advantages versus disadvantages. But in infrastructure as a code, I personally prefer immutable way more, because it leads to lesser problems in most of the cases. But there are certain times also that you cannot always just go away with the resource and bring up a new resource. So it is sometimes a mixture of immutable and mutable. So that brings us to the tools that AWS provides for this infrastructure as a code. So we have mainly two tools, which is CloudFormation by AWS and AWS Cloud Development Kit, which is internally it produces CloudFormation stacks, but you write your code in your own language you are comfortable with, like Python, Java, or something else. CloudFormation is basically it's in YAML or JSON. It's a template language. It's based on a template basically. So you have a template, and there inside the template you create stacks, and inside that stack you will create resources. So resources can be various resources that are AWS resources, and then you configure those resources or the resource according to the parameters that are available. And you can also import and export like dependencies for those resources. Okay. So those each can be explicit or implicit. Okay. So that's CloudFormation at a very high level, and you write scripts or CloudFormation scripts which are uploaded in S3 buckets, and you run it from the AWS. You can run it from the AWS console. You can run it by the AWS CLI, or you can use APIs AWS APIs to call CloudFormation scripts. So that would then go and deploy your or provision your application and configure your application based on the other stuff that you write in your CloudFormation script. The AWS Cloud Development Kit is here you write your code in your language that you're comfortable with, like say Python or Java or something like that, and it gets you create an app which in turn it will have a stack, resources, and those kind of stuff inside it. And from the AWS Cloud Development Kit CLI, you will call the you will call the CLI to create the app basically, and that will in turn cause the CloudFormation stacks to be created basically inside that. There are also other tools in the market like Chef, Ansible, Puppet, Terraform, Pulumi. So these are tools which can do the job, but not fully. So there are certain parts of the provisioning, configuring, deploying, and orchestrating part. So not all tools are suitable for all parts. With AWS CloudFormation, since it is CloudFormation and AWS Cloud Development Kit, since those are AWS products, so they are more suited for AWS deployments basically. Okay. AWS resources and AWS infrastructure deployments. So some best practices as to infrastructure as a development code. So with infrastructure as code, we try to bring in software development best practices, so that like we are automating stuff, and we need to be so the way to do it is, we make some change and we need to understand like what that change is doing, and what is so that way we can learn what we are doing, and we are also taking help of the best practices that are there. So for to ensure that we follow certain like best practices or guidelines, which are like code being checked in a repository. So it can be like GitHub, Git, like Bitbucket, or like SVN or whatever. Yeah, the code has to be reviewed. We have to use it. We have then we have tools like code pipeline, code deploy, and that will come in the earlier part also. Like when we are automating the stuff, so with CloudFormation scripts, so this will be called from, say we are doing we are checking in code in our repository in GitHub, and that will trigger a code pipeline in AWS. It's set up like that, and which will in turn trigger CloudFormation scripts, so that it's the when that code pipeline sees a change in that GitHub repository, it triggers that GitHub repository triggers that code pipeline, and it pulls the latest changes from the GitHub repository, and it fires the CloudFormation scripts, and those CloudFormation scripts will then do their work and deploy in the various regions that you have. So like you have dev, sorry. So you have the dev region. It will go and deploy in the dev region. You do some test. Once that passes, it will go to the stage region, and it will see that all things are done. Then it will do some test, and once that passes, it will deploy to the production region. So that's how it will happen, and this can span across accounts also. One of the best practices is to use a good editor while you are writing infrastructure as a code, like the code for infrastructure basically. So a good editor gives you all the benefits of like software development, like don't use Notepad. That's what I'm trying to say, and a good editor will give you a lot of benefits. So use plugins for checking code for problems. So specific tools have specific plugins. So like for CloudFormation, there are specific plugins for to checking code for problems. Make extensive use of code linkers to find problems in code and to fix them. There are tools to test at scale the code you have written before you actually deploy to the environment, the production environment or the test environment, whatever environment you are deploying to. Before you deploy that, it's possible to test at scale. So like you have a tool called TaskAct, which does test CloudFormation scripts at scale, and for the scripts also, you need to, when you are using these plugins for checking code for problems, it will check most of the problems. You need to make sure that you also check for certain things, like check for different regions, because some of the resources, your code may be valid for one region, but it may not be valid for another region, because like where you are deploying to, because that region may not have that specific resource. So these kind of things you need to ensure while you are testing the code before you go and actually deploy. Uh, do not try to write all your code in one file, because that will result in a lot of maintainability issues and lot of problems later on. So it's best to layer your application in various stacks basically. So use multiple stacks, and also use smaller files, so that your application blast radius. So that's from a security standpoint also. So you reduce your blast radius, and use multiple environments to check your code. And also for the security, it's often repeated stuff that don't check in secrets or sensitive things in your code, which can be put in the which can be checked in the repository. So avoid that stuff, and instead use secrets manager or certain other services that AWS has to pull in secrets and sensitive stuff that you refer to in your code. So that's at a high level some best practices that you need to follow while you are deploying infrastructure as a code. And so then I will come back to out here, like, okay. I will come back to out here. So the automate task to provision, configure, deploy, orchestrate infrastructure and applications. So while we are deploying infrastructure, while we are doing our automation through infrastructure as code, it involves a lot of steps. So I'm just repeating what I said. So first of the things is you go and deploy your infrastructure. That is setting up the networks, the basic servers, and those kind of stuff that would be needed. Next, you would configure those infra. So like opening some ports, firewalls, and those kind of stuff. You would do some things that would be required for your application to work. So maybe install some Java libraries or install Java or something like that for your application to work. And then you would go and deploy your application. And then you would monitor those applications and orchestrate those applications. So that's also there. But this is for the first time. Now from the next so that's the first time the application has been deployed and the customers start using it. Now say suppose your new version of the application is coming, or customer reports some error or certain things you want to enhance. So you make some changes to your infra, or you make some changes to the configuration, or you change your application version. So those things also come under infrastructure as a code. So so automate those things, and automating those end to end. So from the deploying the infra to the maintaining the first time is the you are deploying your application, provisioning and deploying your application, to maintaining your application. So all that comes under the scope of infrastructure as code. Okay. And so like now it will if you are new to this, it will start to make more sense. Like infrastructure as a code is more of a concept or a technique, and the tools that that are there, like we saw CloudFormation, we saw AWS CDK, those allow you the software development techniques and the ability to implement ISE. Okay. These are the benefits of the ISE that we have covered. So you can easily scale without because you're writing automated scripts, so you get you can see what is happening, and it happens very fast. Basically, it not always it's in seconds, but most of the times it's very fast. Okay. and it definitely makes life easier for the system administrator or the DevOps engineer or whoever is working on the system, the engineer. So definitely makes the life simple. The productivity goes up, and like it adds a lot of value to business. We saw the declarative versus procedural approach, like where the advantages of being declarative, wherein you just mention what you want versus procedural how you want it. Mutable versus immutable is like the things that can change, and you don't change. Immutable, you don't change. You bring up a new instance or a new resource. You kill the older resource, you add the older resource, and bring up a new resource. You saw the tools by AWS, CloudFormation, AWS Cloud Development Kit, and the other tools being used in market. Some of the other tools and some of the best practices, which is like software development best practices for infrastructure code, like uh, use repository, use a good editor, use tools, and for checking problems in code before you actually deploy the code. You test the code at scale before you actually deploy the code, and break down your code into smaller files, and layer your application to reduce the blast radius. So that's what I had for today, and thank you. And you can reach me out. So at I will send my, I have not added this out here. I will send my email or whatever you need. So that's all for now.